Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot, and welcome to my new people. Always have a few new people. Today, we're going to do the reading that we talked about yesterday. The need for it came up a couple of times, and it's a question that I've definitely gotten from you guys. It's really kind of what you can feel your person's energy is pretty much right on top of you right now. So, what is it that's stopping them from coming in to talk to you at this time? What is it that's creating that holdup? So that's really what we're going to look at. It is a general reading. It will be for this collective, so it's not going to resonate with everybody, and of course it shouldn't resonate with everybody. But if it does resonate with you, then you may want to subscribe or take a look at some of the other videos that have shown up here and some of the other messages that have been on this channel. So we'll start out by looking at the energetic backdrop just to kind of see what's happening in the energy today. We've had a lot of readings these last few days that were, I feel like we'll get one more. We've had a lot of readings over these last few days that have been a little bit broader in kind of what they're looking at. So whether it's the weekend or we might have been looking at the rest of September, timing around the full moon, or sorry, the new moon. That is a little bit broader, the kind of the question that we've been asking. So this is more kind of what's going on right now. We've got the Devil in reverse, and we've got the One of Wind in reverse. So there's been some that with the Devil in reverse, this is something that is no longer controlling somebody that once was. There's been a bid for freedom, and it's somewhat successful, but it feels like they're on the run, or you're on the run. Whoever it is that is out from under the thumb of something is not completely free. Like it's like they're on the run, and if they get caught, they'll be put back in jail. And then we've got the One of Wind over here. There's some kind of untruth that is playing out. So it feels like they're fooling themselves a little bit in this energy. Maybe even feeling like things are a little bit more in the bag than they are, feeling like they're more completed than they actually are. Let's see what else comes out for this. I don't know what I'm thinking here with this. This is the Three of Swords in reverse. This is almost like somebody is denying something to themselves. It has this feeling of letting pain fall away. This is again some sort of, it's an inspired decision or an inspired action, but it doesn't feel like they're completely free to make whatever action or take whatever action that they're taking. This is your person. We've got the Hierophant. So some of this was shared energy, and it's kind of morphed into being more about your person. The Hierophant, they're not listening to some sort of advice, but something has ended. Something is over and done and behind them. I don't know if this is about the third party or not. We'll have to keep drawing the cards to kind of see if we can get a little bit more color around that. But this feels it doesn't feel definitive enough because it has that feeling of being on the run, but it does have the feeling of something being irreparably changed, which we saw that over the last few readings. We saw significant change coming. Now, a lot of that was with the third party, but I don't want to make that assumption. We'll go ahead and see what else wants to come out with this. Again, with them not listening to the voice of reason, though. With this Hierophant, it really is the voice of reason, but it's giving them some spiritual advice that they're not quite taking. And something has ended. This is the end of a cycle, but it's not the end of everything. It's like being the end of a battle, but not the end of a war. So there are additional cycles that will still need to be completed here with this, but there's been a lot of progress, but it's difficult to say how evident that would appear from the outside. The kind of activity that it's been. And this happens, we talked about this in yesterday's reading, which was more of a end of September reading, but it was your person's progress sometimes looking like a couple of steps back. But it's like as they were increasing their emotional capacity, they're retracting, and then they increase a little bit more, and then they retract, and ultimately it trends upward. But it takes a little while, and it looks like a lot of steps backwards. So with the Princess of Cups, it has come out in the upright, and this is a very it's a vulnerable sort of feeling that comes off of this card. It's unique to this deck, the way that this card feels. But what it reminds me of is the feeling that we got of being very alive. And I can't remember which reading that came out in, because some of the ones here recently have have kind of gone together for me a little bit. The energy, it's like I just dipped back down into the exact same stream for this collective. And sometimes I can't remember if I said something on Friday or if I said it on Saturday, but there is a sense of a vulnerability, but this is not a vulnerability that you would see so much as be able to benefit from. It's very much a connection to their own higher self. But I don't get the sense that they're ready to share that with others just yet. With the wheel here, this is more of that feeling of not being able to float because they can't relax. It's got this feeling of not being able to go with the flow and feeling like a newborn, or this is recently hatched, this feeling of vulnerability. This is that the skin is still very sensitive kind of vulnerability, not necessarily emotional vulnerability, although it does reach down into themselves to contact or to have more interaction between them and their higher self. But I don't know how much of that they're aware of. I think what they might be aware of right now is the sensitivity that they feel. And so they're not exactly wanting to jump into change about themselves, but I think they're in the midst of it. Definitely not looking at something that is a truth here. This is more their current energy more than anything else, but I guess that's fine, because we're going to ask the question about what is keeping this person from actually just reaching out to you, given that their energy feels like it's practically on top of you. And it has been pretty close for some time now. We started seeing that phenomenon showing up somewhere in, I guess it was April. They just came a lot closer to you. And even when they would then, oh, I dropped one. Let's see what that is. Even when they would come back closer to you, their energy wasn't actually moving away. They were just moving away kind of in more of the physical ways. So the Nine of Swords here we have in the upright to show how much confusion and anxiety is happening within your person. Let me see if I can scrunch these up just a little bit to try and make everything visible for you. I know there's a little bit of a glare. But this is the Nine of Swords. It talks about the confusion. It's high confusion for what this card usually is. It's always pretty high anxiety for me. Sometimes it's trouble sleeping. Those are pretty traditional meanings, but we got a lot of confusion in there, and it's a lot of confusion on their part, although I'm not going to say there isn't some of that filtering over to you, and you may be able to feel some of this, even if it's not coming from you anyway. We definitely have a lot of permeability in the bond between you. A lot is able to get from one of you to the other, so there's a lot being able to permeate from one to the other, from your world into theirs and into that common energy. With the Eight of Cups, they're a little bit clenched up, so it's partially because of this sensitivity that they feel, but it also has them turning off some things that they would rather kind of want to turn on. So this is the energy of them not necessarily reaching out to you because it's the wrong day for it. We saw in, I think this was yesterday's reading, that there was this sense of, with the actual Eight of Wands came out in the other orientation. So it came out in the upright. And it was talking about kind of these moments of clarity where suddenly they would feel like, you know what, I'm confident, I can reach out. And most of the time they would turn it off, but there might be a time where they actually manage to hit send, and then when they look at their phone and they start to really regret it, you know, they maybe unsend the message, or they ghost back out, or they reblock, you know, that sort of thing. And this is that kind of pulling back, and it's what kind of we were talking about. It seems like they come out, fill their emotional bucket, and then it goes to overflowing. They flood and they retract, you know. So we're constantly seeing that retraction and then coming out and filling it again. But you're not getting what you need out of this situation. So with this Eight of Cups, though, I see them kind of being aware. They have this growing awareness, but not as quickly growing as their ability to kind of comprehend what they're looking at with this. So they're able to see that they're not quite treating you right, but instead it kind of causes them to just run. And with this Eight of Wands, it's actually kind of causing them, this is less running and more of a freezing response. So instead of fight or flight, it's is more of a freeze. But we still see the anxiety and the concern over here. And that's it for the current energy. So right away, we're starting to see why they might be disinclined to reach out. It has a lot to do with this place where they find themselves. It's not so much how they feel about you. It's more about how they are feeling in general right now. There's that anxiety. They are getting closer to themselves on some level right now. We know from watching the readings that there has been some progress on their part with regard to that fear of rejection, abandonment, betrayal, but that's again a place where your lessons have overlapped with theirs. And so sometimes when they're off, when they do the retraction piece, it triggers you with your own lessons that you're working on, and you guys have this kind of back and forth learning thing going on. So let's take a look a little bit more into the question at hand, which again we've already started to see some of the answers to. But what is it that's stopping them from coming to you right now? What is it that is in the way? So we've got the Six of Wind. Yeah, these moments of clarity are not necessarily always working in your favor if what you're seeking is them reaching out. Sometimes these moments of clarity are illuminating super scary things for them. And I think we're getting one more. We've got the Brother of Water, which is like the Knight of Cups. So they they have a tendency to want to reach out to you. Then we've got the High Priestess, and this is more about that connection that we saw over here. The connection that we saw growing with their higher self. So they have this awkward combination of truths that are hitting them. There's a desire not to look at the truth and to kind of not deal with it at the moment, or it's an inconvenient sort of truth timing wise. They have so much going on in their minds, some of it associated with this third party. These moments of clarity, sometimes it's like when the lightning strikes and you get to see kind of the big picture all of a sudden lit up, and then it's not. And so there are these moments of clarity, and sometimes what is revealed in the lightning strike is like, whoa, what was that? And so they are kind of finding themselves in that situation a little bit. So they're having these moments of clarity that are actually quite brilliant, but like, a lightning strike, and it's not necessarily a comfortable thing, especially mixed with the combination or their ability to start to access their higher self. That's mostly happening through dreams right now, and a little bit through fantasy. And the Brother of Water, that is like where it all comes together, but it's the thing that makes them want to reach out to you. It's the reason that you can feel them wanting to reach out to you, is that Brother of Water energy. So they've got a lot going on there. And so part of it is you're feeling it, especially because of the way that they're putting that energy out. But they are almost they're scared of their own shadow. They're having a hard time even functioning just in general, much less. And if you were to ask them, I caught them all. Did I catch them all? I caught them all. If you were to ask them, they would probably tell you that they're doing just fine. They would probably want it to look like they're doing just fine, but they don't really feel like they're doing just fine. Something has just happened in their household. We saw it in readings, or something is happening in some cases. It depends on where they are on their timeline. It's not just your relative healing timelines that we see shifting a little bit, but sometimes it's the day that something happens. So we've got some people putting in resignation letters. We've got some people moving out. We've got some people who are basically putting up a wall against everybody else in their household. There's all kinds of things that once these things are enacted, once these changes in their physical environments are enacted, there's still a period of them having to bounce back, but they're not necessarily ready to do all of the healing required for the rest of that bouncing back. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But there is still that change. We're still seeing the change happening in the household. They are, remember the advice that you got for September that was something to the effect of don't do things the way that you've always done them just because you know you've always done them this way. So they're taking that advice in some ways, but more than anything, they are seeking to control their situation. There's a lot of fear here, and it's the kind that that causes them to seek control because it helps to dull the blow of everything that's happened. Um, it's just an uncomfortable sort of environment for them. Something has really, really shifted. Even if it looks kind of the outside when you went from the outside when you drive past their house, it might not look any different. Things are pretty different inside there, but they are maintaining that, and it's very important to them that they do so. Part of their desire for controlling and appearing controlled, they want to make sure that when you drive past their house, things look pretty normal. They don't want it to look like much has happened. They do have almost well, not almost, it's an unstable tendency to cut things out too quickly, prematurely. So this is somebody who does tend to ghost out, in some cases dramatically, but sometimes you just know they're not coming back anytime soon because you've seen this behavior from them before. That tendency, it's that kind of energy. It's also the energy of, what did we see? I think it was yesterday. We saw somebody who, and I can't remember if it was in the extended or not, which, oh, if you guys didn't see, so I don't do this very often because I try not to plug extendeds because I know they cost money. However, yesterday's extended I thought was particularly helpful. I did shift things around a little bit from what I said I was going to do in the extended, at least when we got to you. But some of the advice that came out even toward the end, I remember thinking, this is somewhat significant and I feel like more people should see it. So I'm just letting you know, absolutely not trying to just sell it or whatever. And I can't remember what I said at the end, but if I do, I'll bring it up for you. So that you have it, even though I can't tell you how in context it's going to be whenever I remember it, because we all know I just suddenly remember stuff out of the middle of nowhere. Anyway, with regard to this dropping or ending of energy, they have this tendency to come in knowing they could just walk away, which is what we saw come out in yesterday's reading. And it's a little bit, I mean, it feels disrespectful. It had that whole narcissist cycle feel to it, although I am by no means calling anyone a narcissist or trying to diagnose anyone. These are tendencies and cycles that you would typically see in those situations, and we were seeing evidence of those in the reading. So we've got the Three of Pentacles here, and it's taken balance to a new height, which you can kind of see on the card. Taking balance to a new height because it's balancing more than just themselves. It's balancing the environment around them. I still feel that pings pretty heavily off of this Emperor energy and this desire to have control in a place that maybe this is a place they don't have a bunch of control. So it's an opportunity for them to relinquish responsibility. But that's a tough thing for them to do. Some healing is going to be required. Excuse me. Some healing is going to be required. So that's what we see with the Four of Swords, but it's not just healing. It's time to kind of get away, make themselves better, make themselves stronger, an opportunity to, and here's my honorable mention, an opportunity to put themselves on the path of success so that they are actually moving in a good direction. But it ends up putting things toward more of a balance. And that's what happens with their healing. So these are the message that we want to put in here for kind of why they're not able to come toward you right now. It has a lot to do with this healing, but this honorable mention is important too, because it has to do with them feeling like things aren't calming down enough. We see the Six of Wind over here in the upright, and it's talking about those, like the bolts of lightning and, you know, the pinpricks of awareness that they get. The Six of Swords, which is basically the same type of energy, but in the reverse, is them saying this is not enough. It's not enough for them to ever really get comfortable with the concepts that are coming out for them. they are still feeling a great deal of fear. You know, I said there was a lot of fear here and they need to have control over the situation. That has a lot to do with why you're not hearing from them right now. What I'm not seeing in here is how they're feeling for you. We know that their emotional capacity is rising right now. We know that they're in a place where their emotions are changing. We also can see over and over again, it keeps coming out in the cards that things in their life are changing. So we know that there's quite a bit going on, but it's not necessarily telling us that emotion that they're holding for you. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that when we get into the extended. We'll also see if we can dig a little bit deeper on maybe not why they're, because I can see between the energy of today, which is pretty representative of some of what they're going through, and the answer to the question. It feels like, yeah, there's good solid reason to want to, I mean, not necessarily reach out. We see that. We see what is getting in the way of that. But let's get more of a read on how they feel about you, as well as understanding, digging in a little deeper on this. But before we do, we're going to go to the part that is all about you. So this is what you could be working on right now, what your focus needs to be based on what else we see going on here, how you ought to be interacting with this situation. Okay, so we have the Empress. Know that there are things that you are unaware of. Know that there are things that have not you've not been exposed to. You might kind of know this is true anyway. One of my people called me, and by my people, I mean you, the viewers. One of you sent me a note and said, okay, I woke up this morning and I realized that there's something I don't know. There's something I've not been told. I can't promise you that how I know this. I just know it. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. As this card was coming up, that note immediately popped into my mind, because that's the sort of vibe going on here. It's all about something that you're not aware of, that you kind of do know is out there, might not be thinking about it. This is a time of changing, but it's like reorienting a large ship into a different direction. So it's not something that happens all at once, but it's something that once you have the change far enough along, something new can be reborn. So this is something having to end in order for something else to be reborn. There is that element to it for sure. Oh, and I remember what I was saying in that extended yesterday. It was toward the end, and I'm sure that that I probably said it better than the way that I was going to say it now. But I was thinking about passion and directing your energy. Okay, so it's like moving something out. I talked about delegating a chore. You know, you delegate the chore and all of a sudden you have time to practice. I used the example of drawing. You know, let's say you like to draw and this is something you've always loved, and now you have an opportunity to do it. This opens up a little bit of a creativity for you, which pulls in some of your passion, some of your energy. But of course, passion is kind of like the flame of a candle. The one you lit it off of doesn't get any smaller when you light a new one, okay? And so when you start drawing, it opens up new doors for you, and you end up, long story short, joining or starting an artist community, and that opens up whole new doors for you. It's something relatively small, like delegating the chore in the first place, that yields all of this opportunity. So I keep talking about this opportunity being in front of you. Here we go. And yet it's not super clear to some of you where that opportunity sits. Some of it is very difficult to see because of the way that you're looking at it, and maybe delegating that chore and using the time to draw opens you up to looking at it in a way that suddenly you see an opportunity in front of you instead of whatever else all those shapes were. Anyway, that is what came out in the extended, and it feels like I was reminded of that as I was kind of talking about this energy, and I thought, oh, how convenient. It not only is in a decent context and kind of relevant, but it's something cool that I wanted to make sure that I share with you guys. And I'm sure I did a better job of explaining it yesterday, but there you have it. So we've got the Five of Cups here in the reverse, and that's basically showing you your ability to take the good with the bad. So there is this element of not knowing what it is that you don't know, and needing to be open to the learning, but you're already so open to the learning. It feels like you just need to be told which way to go, but you're the one that has to tell you which way to go. This Five of Cups attitude in the reverse, where you're not just focusing on what hasn't gone well, you're also focusing on what has gone well, has you navigating with less information, which is exactly what we see here. Now, the issue that you may run into is that you're navigating with less information and you're doing just fine, kind of going on feel, but you're maybe not utilizing your logical side as much as you could be. So, just a little something to think about. It doesn't mean you want to overanalyze things or utilize the logical side more heavily than what makes sense to do so. But it's just a reminder not to leave it out there and navigate thoroughly by emotion. Let that emotion, logic, intuition happen for you at the appropriate intervals. But, make sure that the balance is there and you don't lock any one of those things out. So the logical side needs to be there as well. So here we have the Empress side again. This is about not so much not knowing what you don't know, but actually not being prepared for something that comes your way. It ends up being a good thing because you're able to disengage from it without it being too much of an issue, but not before you run headlong into it and try to do something that it turns out you find yourself in over your head. I don't get the I don't get the sense that this is going to turn out to be a really bad thing, but I do get the sense that it's almost like a naivete that puts you in a situation. So we've got the Knight of Wands or the Prince of Wands, and then we have the Princess of Wands, which is like the Page of Wands. So there's a lot of Wands energy, a lot of fire energy, in your ability to jump into something, which is welcome. It's needed. It's really a positive thing, but you're going to find out that you don't actually have everything that you need to make this go the way you want it to go. Okay, so what's blocking you at this point is kind of everything that's happening with them, not what's blocking you in your own endeavors. If you were to, delegate the task, start drawing, move on, that can still happen. Nothing is blocking that. The only thing getting in the way of that is maybe you not seeing that you have something to delegate yet, or you haven't thought of it that way, or that's most of it. Like, that's not a big deal. You're able to move past that if you back up, use that King of Swords energy and kind of take a look at it. But with this Three of Cups, this is actually energy that is blocking you from success with this person. It has to do with the third party. Okay, so this has to do with the third party. And it has to do with something that's getting in the way for you. It is creating a delay for your benefits, or for your learning, because you are spending too much time like fighting it, too much time engaging the energy, it sounds like. So you're not just feeling their energy, you're feeling their energy, which is mixed with that of their third party. And that's part of why this whole thing is so frustrating and challenging and difficult for you. And you get just some of the strangest dreams too, like they've taken they've gone to a new level. Interesting. We've never had that before. We've never had that third party show up in your part of the reading before. But hey, I think that's pretty realistic. Makes sense. We've got the Sun. Okay, so it's like it skipped a couple of steps to give us this message, but I'm done pulling cards. All right, with the Sun, this one is about, we've been seeing the Sun coming out in this element of the reading a lot. We've seen the Sun come out a lot for you, and it has to do with your search for happiness. And the issue with it, though, is it feels like a slow motion search for happiness, because there are some pieces that you need to work out and some pieces where you're not even ready to start asking the questions yet. Still other pieces where you're not even necessarily sure what those questions are going to be. So this is just kind of a reminder to keep moving through some of this more challenging piece. You are also getting a reminder to make sure that you're putting in that logical side, because it's going to help diffuse some of this nonsense that's coming from this third party energy. And honestly, I can't think of a better way to describe that. And then with the star here in the reverse, talking about the delay. This delay is partially being caused by this third party, but it is also going to be partially addressed by you putting your more logical self into it. And by addressed, I don't necessarily mean that you're going to shorten the path. I think you're going to find a better path. So we're going to go ahead and go into the extended now. Definitely going to ask the question of how your person is thinking and feeling about you at this point. And let's hope that we can, if we don't get it, we'll get more information. We'll specifically ask for more information about why it is that they aren't reaching out at this time, despite the fact that you can truly feel their energy is just right there on top of you. So that's where we'll go. The link is down below in the description for the video if you're interested. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow.